Hello, this is His Word Unveiled. We are still in the book of Exodus, just moving along chapter by chapter throughout the entire Word of God, grabbing a hold of and just being found in the presence of God and seeing Him reveal Himself through His Word. Loving this. I'm growing so much. I trust and pray that you are too. I'm so happy every time you hit that play button and you choose to walk along with me. Keep being disciplined. Keep seeking the Lord. This has nothing to do with me and my videos and what I'm sharing. It has everything to do with just making yourself available, positioning yourself to hear from the Lord and seeing what He is saying. Here, look, here, see who I am in this. See what I can do, what I have done. It's all about Him. This is all Him and what He desires, so deeply desires to show us, and how He chooses to just meet with us in beautiful ways. So where we're at in the book of Exodus, Moses is up on Mount Sinai. We see that he was up there for 40 days and 40 nights. And through this time of 40 days and 40 nights, the Lord is speaking to him. He is meeting with Moses and speaking these instructions, speaking these commands. We saw that he was speaking the 10 commandments and just all of these commands that the children of Israel, and how they should live their lives and what they shouldn't do and what they should do. God relaying His covenant, saying, listen, these are the commands that I am saying. If you heed to what I'm saying, if you are obedient and following these commands, then here's what my blessing's going to look like. And here's how I'm just going to pour myself out on you. Here's how I'm going to be your God. Here's how you're going to be blessed. Here's what I'm going to keep you out of. Here's the freedom that you can have with me when you choose to obey and do these commands. So He is laying out all these commandments, these instructions to Moses. And in the last few chapters, we see that or saw that He is giving specific instructions for the construction of this tabernacle that will be built. And this tabernacle will be built for the main reason is so that God can dwell among His people, dwell among the children of Israel and be their God and be just with them. So beautiful. He's giving these instructions. We read about just how exactly the Ark of the Covenant was to be built. The table of showbread and how bread needed to continually be baked, resembling just that fellowship with God, just the invitation into His presence. We talked about the lampstand, the curtain, how the whole tabernacle is to be covered, and what materials and how long, big, all of these things we're talking about, and seeing that there's purpose in every detail. And everything that the Lord is speaking, He never speaks, He never gives. There's nothing in this word that doesn't hold purpose and power and just active movement that can be applied to our lives. Everything that comes out of the mouth of the Lord is full of purpose and full of life. So we have got to take Him at His word. We have got to lean in, tune in, and be ready to just move in what He shows us, what He reveals to us. So we've talked about those things. So chapter 27 will be our reading for today, 27 and 28. So I have no clue if I've had you read that already. Man, this morning's just been kind of crazy for me. So I'm pretty sure I have. And then I prayed, right? Yeah, I'm thinking so. If not, you've watched enough of my videos, hopefully, to know to do that. If you haven't, oh my goodness, I'm getting so old. Anyway, Exodus chapter 27 and 28 is what we are going to hit now. So going into chapter 27, we are going to talk about the altar, this bronze altar, and just the court. So this area of where the tabernacle will be placed. So through your reading, right away, they talk about this bronze altar. So this is the altar that sacrifices will be made on. So when they bring an animal, the animal will be killed here, will be slaughtered on this altar, this bronze altar, given as a sacrifice in order to make us right with the Lord. The sacrifice needs to be done by that blood that is shed, by that blood that is given and sprinkled upon. That is what makes the children of Israel right before God. There had to be a blood, an animal sacrifice that took care of the sins, that covered the sins of the people. And all of that was done on this bronze altar. Now this altar was done, we spoke, everything that we talked about before in the last few chapters was what would be in the holy place. So we talked about the table of showbread, that lampstand, and the Ark of the Covenant being in the most holy place. So all of these things will be in, and they were all overlaid with gold. And now we see this altar that is outside of that. It is outside of this covering of the holy place, but it is going to be placed in the courtyard, so that when the people came, they could see, they could be around this altar where these sacrifices were to be placed. And then after those sacrifices were made, then the priests would go into the holy place and make atonement for the people. But only the priests were able to go into the holy place. But this altar was out in the public, in a sense, within the court. So there would be like poles and curtains and things around it, but to enter in was for the public, was seen by the public. And everything within the holy place was overlaid with gold. We see this altar, though, everything out here in the court is overlaid with bronze. So this altar, then, it is the bronze altar. I love in verse 2, it says, "You shall make its horns on its four corners. Its horns shall be of one piece with it, and you shall overlay it with bronze." So within this, and of course giving the exact measurements, because that's who God is. He is a God of detail, and within all of those measurements there's purpose, there's reason. It's all exactly how God chose to have it. So this altar, this bronze altar, on the four corners of it, so just imagine this box, and then the corners are going out on the outside. These horns, they symbolize strength. They symbolize strength. Throughout the word, we see people holding on to the horns for different reasons. We'll get into that throughout the word. But these horns are to be strength. And you know what? Father just impressed on me reading this and thinking these horns, thinking this is where animals were sacrificed. Thinking, okay, they bring an animal. They lay it down. They would have to tie it down in some way. And so these horns, these horns are going out. That's how, I would assume that's how they would tie the rope around these horns to tie down the animal so that the sacrifice was able to be made. And thinking of that picture, thinking these horns are supposed to resemble strength. And it says all in one piece. So the horn shall be of one piece with this altar. So strength being tied into what this is, tied into this sacrifice. And knowing that this animal needed to be tied down in strength, by strength, in this moment of surrender. And how applicable that can be for our lives. And when we surrender ourselves, that we are to be tied down with the strength of God. That we are saying, okay, Lord, you are Lord over my life. You are Lord over this area of my life, and this area of my life, and this, and all of that, saying, God, you are Lord over your strength, tying me down into surrender in all that you are, so that I can see you, so that I can encounter you, so that I can feel you, so that I can be moved by you, but tying everything in myself down so that I can be in stillness, to be exposed, to be taken over by the strength of God, so that I can be free from all of this stuff, from all of this, that I offer myself up and choosing to be still, to be tied down, and laying myself out there, saying all of this stuff I'm laying down, all of this stuff I'm giving up, all of this stuff I'm choosing to have replaced by the strength of God, so that strength can take over my weakness, that His peace can take over my fear and my anxiety. His grace, His mercy, His blood can be taking over all of this filth within me, can be transforming and doing something in me. Yes, God's strength taking over. And us coming to this moment of surrender and saying, I want all of God. I'm laying myself out. I'm laying myself here. Be Lord over everything. That beautiful moment of surrender and offering ourselves up as a sacrifice to the Lord, saying, I have nothing to give but myself. And that is enough. And that's what God wants. Okay, so we see all these measurements of this altar. We see that the horns, that everything is one piece, and all of these things. We saw even the lampstand in one piece. All of these branches that went out, resembling this tree, this symbol of life, this symbol of just everything in it. These bulbs that were around it, one piece. Everything was one piece, and we see this altar too with the horns, one piece, coming together, being one, united with the Lord. Okay, so we lay out that altar. Then we go into verse 9. You shall make the court of the tabernacle. So it explains everything that goes around this. So we have the whole court, and within the court then is the holy place. Outside of that holy place, within the court, is this bronze altar where all the sacrifices take place. So it's all within the court. And so starting in verse 9, it just lays out the length, the height, the hangings, the poles that are supposed to be around it, that are will be surrounding it, and what material, going through everything. Then we see down in verse 19, all the utensils of the tabernacle used in all its service and all its pegs, and the pegs of the court shall be of bronze. So even the distinction between everything, again, in the holy place is gold. Everything out in the court, in this area, shall be of bronze. Verse 20, you shall charge the sons of Israel that they bring you clear oil of beaten olives for the light, to make a lamp burn continually. In the tent of meeting, outside the veil which is before the testimony, Aaron and his sons shall keep it in order from evening to morning before the Lord. It shall be a perpetual statute throughout their generations for the sons of Israel. So this is just speaking with that lampstand, that there should be a light. Part of the contribution of what the children of Israel bring in is this oil, excuse me, is this oil from these olives. It says beaten olives, this oil is brought, and that is what is to be used for the light. And it says this light is to be burning continually. We read in the table of showbread that this bread is to be baked and laid out continually. The lights are to be lit. This lampstand, these candles, this light, there should always be light continually. This emphasis on continually, every day, and this consistent growth, this consistent seeking the Lord, this consistent serving the Lord. It's not just you wake up and you pray and you read a verse, or you go to church Sunday and these one times a day. It's continually a life with the Lord, being in his presence, encountering him, being in relationship with him, walking with him should be continual. It should be consistent. It should be baked in everything that we do. It's not just the one thing. We can check it off, our list. We did our thing with God. We met with him. Now I can go to work, or now I can go to school, or now I can take care of the kids, or now I can hang out with my friends, or now I can read a book, whatever. And everything we do is continual. That lampstand, that light was to continually be lit. Always. It should never go out. This bread should always be there, baked, ready, bringing in, symbolizing just this constant fellowship with the Lord, this constant being in his presence, this constant encountering him, just continually. Okay, so that finishes up chapter 27. So much in that. Moving on into chapter 28 then. This is talking about the instructions for the holy garments that the priests were to wear. In verse 2, you shall make holy garments for Aaron and your brother, for glory and for beauty. So again, going back to, and we'll read more about it, but Aaron, Moses, Aaron's sons, his brothers, everyone, they came from the tribe of Levi. The Levites were to be the priests. So we see throughout the Word of God, the Levites are different. They're set apart, even with the land allotments, with what tribe got what part of the land, their territory, the place that they stayed at, they dwelled at, the things they did. Everything looked different with the Levites, that they were called out to be these priests, to take care of this tabernacle, the temple, and we'll see that they all have certain jobs. So they were set apart. They were the only ones that were able to go into the holy place. the most high priest was the only one able to go into the most holy place. So we see that because they enter into the holy place, that the rest of the children of Israel were not allowed to go into. They didn't have access into the closeness, the nearness of God's presence. Because it was the Levites, they were to wear holy garments. They had to wear something that was very purposeful, that was very just had holiness written all over it. With so much purpose, the Lord spoke these things of what the priests were to wear. We see in verse 4, it says, "These are the garments which they shall make." So these pieces were to be made in holiness, in just such specifications of these garments of what the priest was to wear. So in verse 4, "These are the garments which they shall make: a breastpiece, and an ephod, and a robe, and a tunic of checkered work, and a turban, and a sash. And they shall make holy garments for Aaron and your brother and his sons, that he may minister as priest to me." So they go into, through your reading, you read the specifics, these instructions of how these were specifically to be made, how they were to wear them. Everything had so much detail in it. And it was so important to wear these correctly, to know the meaning, to wear them with purpose, to wear them with authority, to understand the holiness of meaning within them. Verse 6, they briefly talk about the ephod of gold. This was to be made of gold. They talk about the fabric, how it was to be made. We see that there are 2 onyx stones. In verse 9, we see 2 onyx stones. And one of these stones, they were to have the six tribes of Israel. The other stone was to have the other 6. So, and they were to wear them over the straps. So 1 stone over here with 6 tribes, 1 stone over here with 6 tribes. And then the ephod would fall in the back, but the straps would come forward. It says in verse 12, "And Aaron shall bear their names," so the 12 tribes of Israel, "their names before the Lord on his 2 shoulders for a memorial." And it was to all be set in gold. So this ephod were to come over his shoulders and strap into the breast piece, which we talk about after this. But so the 6 tribes of Israel here on a stone, 6 tribes of Israel here. So he was to wear them over his shoulders, the 12 tribes of Israel, knowing that he was to make atonement for the entire nation of Israel, that they rested on his shoulders, that the Lord was giving him that responsibility, that honor to go in to make atonement, to come before the Lord, to bring them before the Lord. In verse 15, "You shall make a breastpiece of judgment, the work of a skillful workman. Like the work of the ephod, you shall make it." And it talks of gold, of blue, purple, scarlet material, these very royal materials, of course, of gold, and just relaying just the holiness in it, the purity in it. Talks about how it should be made. Twisted, it shall be square, folded double, a span in length and a span in width. You shall mount on it 4 rows of stones. So on this ephod, we see the stones with the 12 tribes of Israel. The straps are to be connected to this breastplate, so it would hook onto the breast piece. On this breast piece, there will be 4 rows, and each stone is 3. So there are 3 stones, 3 stones, 3 stones, 3 stones, 4 rows of these 3 stones. Every stone, of course, it adds up to 12, symbolizing the 12 tribes of Israel. Again, so we see the importance. These 12 tribes make up the entire nation of Israel, the children of God. This is so important that it's all over the priests, that they are bringing what they have on them, the 12 tribes of Israel, bringing them to the Lord to make them right before the Lord, and making these sacrifices and the sprinkling of the blood, and in making atonement for them. The priest was their way to the Lord back then. And again, we see that, and we see how incredibly grateful we can be to not have to go through any priest, to not have to go through anyone now, that God made that ultimate sacrifice. He did, and he became our high priest, so we go directly to him. We have that access. Beautiful, incredible, powerful. So as we said then, those 12 stones on this breastpiece are all different. It says the first row shall be a row of ruby, topaz, emerald. The second row, turquoise, sapphire, diamond. The second, jacinth, and agate, and amethyst. The fourth row then, beryl, onyx, and jasper. And each of those stones resemble the 12 tribes of Israel. So it says in verse 21, the stone shall be according to the names of the sons of Israel, 12 according to their names. They shall be like the engravings of a seal, engraved upon this breastpiece, just embedded as the seal, as this symbol, as this importance of God's love, as God's pursuit, as God's choosing to work in them, choosing to meet with them. I'm choosing to be their God. Jumping down in verse 29, we see Aaron shall carry the names of the sons of Israel in the breastpiece of judgment over his heart when he enters the holy place for memorial before the Lord continually. We see carried on into 30, down towards the end, and Aaron shall carry the judgment of the sons of Israel over his heart before the Lord continually. Speaking that again, just back to back in the same verse, over his heart, the importance of keeping them there, keeping just this holiness, this understanding that the Lord treasures this nation. He treasures the children of Israel. He does not take it lightly, and putting all of this detail into even where these stones are placed over the priest's heart, over their shoulders, and carrying them. Just so much detail, so much heart that God put into these instructions even. Then we see the robe of the ephod, all of blue. So we see the ephod, the breastpiece, and now we're on to the robe. It's specific in just how it's made again, what's on it. It says at the very bottom that there are to be, it says, you shall make on its hem, this is verse 33, pomegranates of blue and purple and scarlet material all around the hem, and bells of gold between them all around, a golden bell, a pomegranate, a bell, a pomegranate, all the way around the hem of the robe. Then in verse 35 and 36 it says, it shall be on Aaron when he ministers, and its tinkling shall be heard when he enters and leaves the holy place before the Lord, so that he will not die. And these are all of gold. It says the plate of pure gold. There shall be a plate of pure gold on the head. This is the crown piece over the turban. So that will be the next. But sticking with the robe. So it says that there will be a pomegranate bell all around the hem on the bottom of the robe of the priest. And it says its tinkling will be heard when he enters the holy place, so that he will not die. So guys, the priest had to wear something that made noise. Because when he entered into the holy place, God just speaking, this is how holy it is. This is how holy, that when if the priest is not right before me, if he has sin in his life, then when he goes into that holy place, he will not be able to stand. He will die. And the bells on the hem of this robe were to allow the other priests, the people within the holy place, to know if he is dead. If they don't hear the tinkling of those bells, they know that he had approached the holy place, not right in his heart, with sin in his life, and he has died. He has gone down. You don't hear the tinkling anymore. That's a symbol of he has died. That's how holy this place is. That's how holy God is saying, I am holy. I am holy. He's not even allowing the children of Israel to come up to the mountain because of his holiness, because of just how holy he is, how we should be fearing the Lord. That they had to wear bells on the bottom of this robe to let the others know if he has died or not, if he was right or not, if he had sin in his life. Think if we had that upon us, if people knew that clearly, if we had sin in our lives, if it was that clear, how we would do things differently. And it shouldn't be any different. We should be real either way, whether people see it or not. Are we approaching the presence of God with that much fear, with that much awe, with that much understanding of how holy he is? That's where it's at. If God demanded that out of them, and you need to check yourself every time you come to me, every time you live every day. You need to be evaluating with this much care, with this much being on guard, this much taking heed, taking diligent and careful heed to where you're at with the Lord, how you're living. If you are just coming into his presence like it's nothing, like you've got all this all full of yourself and you're coming in like, hey, God bless me. Hey, how's it going? I'm reading my Bible. I'm good. I'm checking it off. I'm a good person. Or are we coming in like, God, we understand who you are. We see you. We want to see you in your holiness. We are fearing you, understanding how much higher you are and how small we are, knowing our place, knowing our position, yet knowing that God invites us into that holiness, invites us into his glory. That should humble us. That should convict us. That should get us just in the right place and in seeking him in the right way, and in just that understanding how great he is. Okay, so then, yes, it goes into just the plate of gold, this crown that's to be over his turban. It says caps for them, placing this turban on for glory and for beauty. Talks about the tunic briefly of this checkered pattern. In verse 41, you shall put them on Aaron and your brother and on his sons with him, and you shall anoint them and ordain them and consecrate them, that they may serve me as priests. And then he goes into these linen breeches. So underneath this linen, their underwear, these undergarments that they are to wear, and just saying, okay, the undergarments are to cover his nakedness, but we can't stop there. Just understanding how much we're covered and how much holiness is to be covering us, that we are to allow the blood of Jesus, his power, who he is, to cover our nakedness. Again, that replacing of his grace to cover our sin, his strength, his power to be replacing and covering our weakness. You know, his peace to be covering our fear. All of these things, that it's not just a simple covering, but we have to understand that what we're covered in is so much holiness. There's so many layers of his power, of his peace, of his protection, of what he has to offer. You know, it's not only, I mean, we see in 42 and 43 this emphasis on these undergarments, that he has to wear them. They have to be a certain length, covering everything. And yet God just puts so much purpose then in the ephod and in the breastpiece and in the robe and in the tunic, everything that's even to cover that which covers his shame and his nakedness. Just so much put into that, so much put into just what they are to wear, how they are to clothe themselves. And guys, it's the same for us. He is telling us to clothe ourselves with him, with the holiness, with all of this understanding of his precious love, of his precious grace, his precious everything, and bringing us into relationship, that we are to be covered with him. We are to be clothed with him, with his strength, with his heart, with his character, with his peace, so that when we go out into the world, we're clothed with everything we need to make a difference, to be steady and firm in who he is, standing on his word and in his power. Just on him, on his blessings, walking out with him, being connected, being united, being as one with him continually in everything we do. Guys, this stuff isn't boring if we choose to read it and choose to see it in the purpose that God allowed it to be written, allowed it to be just spoken into our hearts. So good. So those last verses, then we read, you know, that the priests are to be anointed and ordained and consecrated, and that will be our next video in the consecration of the priests. So we will hit that in our next video, in our next chapters. Thank you so much for walking this out with me. There's more and more. So though we went through this, I guarantee you the next time you read it, the Lord will have more for you. So never grow content in what you think that you know. Every time we read his word, it comes alive in a different way, in a new way, if we are reading to learn, if we are reading to see God himself. Thank you for walking this out with me. I hope to see you very soon, and that's where I'm leaving this. See ya.